and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kika and today I'm gonna walk you through how to knit the sweater that I'm currently wearing. This is the Comfort Zone sweater. It's a very classic V-neck sweater. It has a dropped shoulder. And the great thing about this project is that you really don't need to have a lot of knowledge in knitting prior to knitting this sweater. So all you really need to know is how to knit and how to purl. Those things I'm not going to be walking you through in this video, and it's good if you know how to cast on stitches and if you know the standard bind-off method or bind-off method, but everything else I am going to be breaking down very comprehensively in this video. So if this is maybe your first sweater project, then hello, and I am so glad that you are embarking on this first sweater knitting journey. Or maybe you are an experienced knitter and you want something really relaxing and easy to knit. I know that even though I've been knitting for over 30 years, the projects that I really gravitate towards, maybe especially at the moment with all the stuff that's going on in the world, it feels quite busy and noisy. So I like to always have a very simple project going on. And this is a very simple, timeless design, I would say. And I would also say that a V-neck fits most body types. So I know that some people don't maybe like the crew neck or like a high collar, especially if you have like more boobs than I do. It can feel a little, I don't know, like does something with the proportions, but this has like a generous V-neck, which I think really fits most people, most body types very nicely. And I thought it was really fun. I did in my previous tutorial for the One More Row scarf, I did like a little styling session in the beginning as I was walking through some of the key features of the pattern. So I thought I will do that today again. So I'm gonna style, I have 3 Comfort Zone sweaters myself, and I'm gonna talk about it and style it for you. So maybe you get some inspiration, some ideas. You also get like a sense of, is this a knitted piece that you would like in your handmade wardrobe? Because of course, when you are starting a knit project, like you want to really make sure that you choose projects that you're gonna want to stick to and commit to and knit them, because it is like a pretty large undertaking. So the more motivated you are to actually wear it, I think you have just more of that drive to then finish and complete that project. All right, let me set up my camera here. Edwin just turned 2 years old, so we still have like these balloons all over our flat. Okay, so first I'm gonna style my blue Comfort Zone sweater. This is the sweater that I knitted for this tutorial, and this one is in more of a cropped length. So I did my original one, the gray one, in a longer length. Let me just grab that for you. So this was the first one I did, and you can see this is much longer, has like a, well, just longer body length. So it has like a very different overall vibe, and I wanted to try just to see how it would fit with a more cropped length. And the sleeves, of course, you can customize to your own length as always. Now, the really cool thing about this sweater is that it has this little pearl edge detail on the back, which just adds a little something, and it actually also has that around the V-neck collar, even though it's not as obvious as the back detail. I've been really obsessed with this color for a long time, this blue color, and I thought it would be maybe nice to try to match it with brown. So I'm gonna put on these brown barrel pants. For a long time, I was not going or getting on the barrel pants trend wagon, but I finally caved, and I actually really like it. I think it is a very nice, does something a little bit different, like a silhouette. And I thought, so I'm keeping this pretty kind of clean, minimal, but I thought like a really fun detail. This is a necklace I did a few years ago with just some random beads. It's really fun and playful, so I thought I will add that to this outfit. So there's like something a little playful going on. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say, if you're just here for the tutorial, I will put the timestamp again, so you can just like jump straight into the tutorial. And if you're maybe not here for the tutorial, you want to see the styling, then please enjoy. This is what I'm envisioning this with. I mean, how cool is this? I think the blue really pops when you add it to something kind of like a muted palette. Yeah, I think this is like perfection already. I do need a bag though. Okay, for my bag, I'm just gonna go, this is like a really, one of my absolute favorites. I've had it for many years. It's by Chloe, one of my most expensive bags. And I thought actually it could be nice to add a bit of an accessory. So this is my, in my stripes era balaclava. So I think I would maybe want to wear this just like this, like as a hood, if it's still a little, I'm not sure, does that work? No, I think a scarf is better. Wait, we have to, that didn't work. I'm gonna go for a small scarf instead. This is my Stay Toasty scarf. I have a full tutorial for this. Okay, yes, I think I'm gonna go for this natural color. Oh yes, yes, yes. Yes, now the look is complete. So yeah, just like a really easy way, I think, to style this, to wear this now for this kind of in-between season when it's not really summer yet. Well, spring is kind of slowly coming here in Helsinki. But yeah, if you want to go like for a more vibrant color, when you're gonna knit the comfort. As I was saying, if you're gonna go for a more vibrant knit for your comfort zone sweater, this is one way to style it. All right, next up we have the gray one, and this is knitted with alpaca silk and Isager silk mohair, and it has, I feel like, a more drapey vibe, and it is also, it's the same size. I knitted both my samples in size small, but sometimes I don't know if it's the yarn or if it's my tension that sometimes differs a little, but I feel this is a little bit more comfortable, a bit more oversized. You'll see in a sec. Here you have it just on its own. My comfort zone sweater. This is now the longer body version. I put on my these kind of blush pink jeans. I love these so much. I wear them all the time, and I thought this could be like a fun combo. But I would actually, I think I'm gonna try maybe to put on like a shirt underneath with like a collar, so you can see how you can style it. But here you can basically see by just like adjusting the body length. So of course that is something that you can choose while you're knitting this. So this is knitted from top down, has a dropped shoulder, and you can essentially try it on as you go, and then you can customize the body length. So you have a cuff, no, not a cuff, a hem rib that is approximately like 8 centimeters. So that's around 3 inches. So you can have like a measuring tape, you can try it on, have the measuring tape, and then you'll kind of see where it will hit you. Or even better, you can take a sweater that you have, which body length you really like, and then you can measure it against that and try to hit the same. I think that's maybe even more a smarter way to go about it, if you know what I mean. Okay, let me put on a shirt. Okay, I have like 2 options. I have this stripy one and this one. I think I'm gonna go with the stripy one. I think it looks quite nice, and I even buttoned the collar all the way up, and I think the way I would use this, because now it's pretty like proper and formal everything. So what you can do is I'm gonna take these sleeves from underneath here and just like fold these sleeves up a little bit. I think that little cuff detail, that looks really nice. This looks nice, but I think I'm gonna change my jeans. So I feel like this has more of a, really like a comfort zone vibe. I decided to call it the comfort zone because I just wanted something that is both like effortlessly elegant, but also has that a little bit of like hygge vibes so that you can really reach for this time and time again from your closet and just know that you're gonna feel comfortable in it. My definitely most worn shoes for the past few, well, summers have been my Birkenstocks. So I would maybe pair it with these, and then like just a good functional big bag, and yeah, I would be ready. Yeah, so obviously you could also make it more like casual, not have it buttoned up all the way. Yeah, like this. Okay, the last one is such a fun one because the color. I think this is such a fresh, nice, like lemony color. This was knitted by a sample knitter. The yarn is 2 strands of chaos yarn. I think it's like a Suri alpaca. I don't remember the name of it, but I'll put it on screen here. The thing that happened though is I bought these yarns a few years ago in Copenhagen, and I think I bought all that they had in the shop, and which was like 7 skeins. So what's that, like just under 200 grams, 175 grams. And it was kind of tight, like I wasn't sure if that was gonna be enough. And it wasn't enough, and look what happened. So I don't know if you can see it on screen, but we had to basically get more yarn. And of course it wasn't the same dye lot. So you can kind of see the difference here at the hem. It's not exactly the same color, but I'm hoping maybe at some point, if I could find a yarn that would be similar, or that same yarn, but in a different dye lot, to maybe rip this back and redo it. But for now, let me show you how it looks. But yeah, now you know, these things happen, and that's why you should always buy enough yarn for your projects. This is so nice, just the fabric. This is so much airier and lighter. So if you are in a country where you don't really have very cold weather, so for the Comfort Zone sweater, the yarn that I've used in my samples has been 1 strand of fingering and then 1 strand of lace weight yarn. So a silk mohair and a merino in the first one, alpaca silk. So basically you can pair like fingering a lace weight, or you could use a DK weight. That would make it a little bit more of a dense fabric, so if you want more structure to your garment. Or you could also use a sport weight yarn, or for example 2 or 3 strands of some lace weight yarn and make your own little combo. And you can also decide then the body length. So in the pattern I've put in how much yarn you need for the longer version, the gray one. So obviously if you're gonna make it cropped, you're gonna need a little bit less. Okay, I wanna try something here. I have this coat or jacket, I suppose, that is also light blue, that I thrifted this from a brand called Custom Made. Oh yeah. And I think it's just very playful and fun. Well, now you can't really see the sweater, but I think this is a way I would maybe use this. So with like really just casual jeans, like having a statement coat, I think is so much fun. And then I could just wear, yeah, some comfy shoes. I think this is a really nice outfit and a pretty unexpected color combo to have, like the lemon yellow and the light blue. Very nice for spring, and still feels pretty, I would say, kind of muted and safe. Like it's not too loud, but it's still something a little bit different, which is always the kind of color combos I really look for. Like I want it to feel pretty elegant and classic, but at the same time playful and unexpected without it being like too crazy. You know what I mean? I just popped on my light blue Stay Toasty scarf, and I actually really like this. Like this whole outfit I think is so nice. And especially when you have the V-neck that is pretty generous, I think it works really well to have a small scarf, because then you still show a little bit of skin. All right, I hope you enjoyed all these little styling tips. Now let's get into the actual tutorial. So buckle up and let's get ready to knit. For my Comfort Zone sweater, I'm gonna be knitting with 1 strand of merino. This is Sunday's Garn Sunday. I will put up the color code here on the screen because I cannot remember what color code this is. And then Isager silk mohair. So 1 fingering weight yarn together with a lace weight yarn. You are free to use this kind of combo, or you could also use just 1 strand of sport or DK weight yarn. I am going to be working on a 4mm needle, so that's a US 6 needle, but do check that you get a gauge that is 19 stitches per 10 centimeters or 4 inches. So you might have to size up or size down depending on your tension, and 19 stitches is after you have blocked your swatch. All right, we are ready to begin to cast on for the Comfort Zone sweater. So first we are going to work the upper back, and I'm going to be casting on X amount of stitches. You can use the long tail cast on method or the backwards loop cast on method. This cast on edge is going to be hidden anyway, because we are going to be picking up stitches for the collar later on. For the long tail cast on method, first we just make a slip knot. So you just do a little loop like that and thread some yarn through. Then you can either use a larger size needle here for casting on. I usually just use the size needle I'm gonna be working. And you want to have a generous tail And then just grab your yarn and cast on the amount of stitches. Once you have cast on, we're gonna work a preparation row, and we're gonna be placing these removable stitch markers in the first and the last stitch. And this is going to help us to know where we're gonna pick up stitches later on. So I'm going to purl this first stitch, and then into this stitch, I'm going to be placing a stitch marker. So these are really handy because you can open these up and then lock it in place. So we're not gonna be carry these stitch markers as we go. They are just going to be here marking the placement for picking up stitches for the shoulder seams later on. All right, I've worked almost all my stitches. Here's my last stitch. I'm purling that one, and I am placing another of these removable stitch markers into this stitch. So that is our preparation row done. Then we're going to be turning the work, and we are going to now shape the upper back by working increases in every first and last stitch on each row. So this is done both on the right side rows and the wrong side rows. And we use an increase called KFB, which stands for knit front and back. So I'm going to show you that now, and you do the same for for the right side or the wrong side. So knit front and back essentially means that we're going to be knitting the same loop both from the front leg and the back leg. So first I just knit as I would usually, go and wrap in yarn and take it through. And then the same stitch I want to knit from the back leg, so I need to do a little bit of maneuver here, and I insert the needle into the back leg and I wrap around yarn and I take it through. So I've essentially knitted the same stitch twice. So first from the front loop and then from the back loop. Like that, knit front and back. So we've now increased one stitch. And then I'm just gonna be knitting to the last stitch and then repeat. All right, here's my last stitch. So let's do that once more. So first you go in as you would normally, through the front leg, wrap yarn around, take it through, and then do the same through the back leg, wrap some yarn and go through like that. So now we've done 2 increases for this first row. And then you're going to do this exactly on every row. So now, even though it's on the wrong side row, we're going to do the same knit front and back. And I've chosen this way to do it just because it's very simple and easy to remember. And we are going to be picking up stitches anyways for the shoulders. So this edge is going to be hidden. You are going to continue to work those increase rows. So you can see here you have this increase line, and we place those stitch markers at the beginning. So I have those here, my removable stitch markers. And once you've done all your increases, so you just follow the pattern, it says repeat rows 1 and 2 X amount of times. And you can also check, if you get a little confused, how many stitches you're supposed to end up with. That might be more helpful. And once you've done your increases, you're gonna pop again a stitch marker here, both at the beginning and end of that last row. So in the first and last stitch, so that we know then when we move on and we're gonna be picking up stitches, we know exactly where to start and where to end, and do that, of course, for both sides. And once you've done that, you're gonna continue working just flat, so in stockinette stitch. So you knit all the right side rows, you purl all the wrong side rows, and then you wanna have a measuring tape handy. I've steam blocked a little bit my piece because it was rolling a bit. You're welcome to do that if it helps. And then you're just gonna measure from, well, from your cast on edge. So here in the middle of the work, so from the cast on edge there, you're gonna measure this entire piece, and it's gonna say how many centimeters or inches you want to end up with. So depends a little bit on, of course, your row gauge, how many rows you're gonna do, but that's also why it's kind of easy to modify. And if your row gauge is a little off, it doesn't matter too much, because you're just gonna then work until that X amount of centimeters. And when you have reached that, we are going to put these stitches on hold and work the upper fronts next. So we can go ahead and cut the yarn, leave a bit of a tail here. And I'm going to just pop my stitches on a stitch wire while I then work or pick up stitches for the fronts next. So a stitch wire like this is very, very handy. It's a little tube that you can essentially pop onto your knitting needle like this. And this will allow you to transfer all of these stitches, because we're gonna come back to them when we work the body. And I can just go ahead and move them all from my working needle so that I can use the same knitting needle for picking up stitches. Oi, okay, this sometimes happens. Live example of when you're not being careful. So I just dropped or just lost the connection to my stitch wire, dropped some stitches. No panic, just gonna catch them all again, like that, and then I'll pop it on again. So yeah, do be mindful to not pull too tight. Sometimes these stitch wires tend to come off a little. And I like to make a little knot here at the end, or both ends actually, just to make sure that I don't lose my stitches. Next, we're going to be picking up stitches for the left front. So the left front just means that when you have your work in front of you with the right side facing you, the cast on edge is towards the top. And so then this is the left, because this is on the left side. And we're going to be picking up stitches here from the left side stitch marker here along the neckline until the left side outer edge stitch marker. So entire this line here. So we're gonna pick up our, again, 4mm or US 6 or whatever size needle you are working with. And I'm gonna grab some new yarn. We're gonna start picking up stitches here at our stitch marker. So I can go ahead and remove this marker now. We don't need that anymore. And here I now want to kind of locate where I've done that first increase. So it's somewhere around here. And you wanna be mindful about picking up stitches like below this increase little bump that you will have. So you want to hide that. So I'm gonna just wrap some yarn so I poke it through, and then I'm just gonna have leave a bit of a tail, and then wrap some yarn around my needle, kind of hold it a little bit tight here, and then go through here like that. And then I'm gonna see I have my working yarn here now in my left hand. And then we're gonna start to picking up stitches and check the pattern to see how many stitches you need. It essentially corresponds to the amount of stitches that we have increased along this edge. So it's gonna be 1 stitch per stitch basically that you're gonna pick up here. And you want to, so I usually kind of like to go between the stitches. You see these columns here, and I wanna go through in a way that I will hide any sort of bumps here that you can see from those increases. So do make sure that you kind of go below that knit front back. And then you just pick up 1 stitch per stitch. Now you can see that there's kind of a hole there. So I'm actually gonna redo that. I'm gonna go in 1 below, so the strand here, because I don't wanna I still have a hole. Okay, that's not good. So I'm gonna just move on to the next stitch and see if that's better. Yeah, that works better. And then again, I go into the next stitch, and I have the next stitch here. So sometimes this requires a bit of trial and error. You might have to do it again, just because sometimes it's a little hard to see what's going on. Just to match that amount of stitches that you need, make sure that you're counting, and yeah, keep an eye on that. You get a line where you don't have like any weird things sticking up from under here. And then we're just gonna repeat all the way to the stitch marker that we have placed here after we completed our increases, so you know exactly until where you have to pick up your stitches. All right, I only need to pick up 1 more stitch, so it's working out like, like so. All right, and there I have it. I've picked up the amount of stitches I need, so now I can go ahead and remove this stitch marker here. Next, we're gonna work 1 setup row, so we're gonna just turn our work. And the first row is going to be a knit row here from the wrong side, so essentially we're gonna create a purl row that is gonna be on the right side. So we are going to knit all of these stitches for this first setup row. All right, that's the setup row done, and then we're gonna turn the work again. So you can see here now we've created this really nice decorative little detail. There's gonna be this purl row on our upper back side. Next, we're gonna shape the armhole. We're gonna shape the armhole by working in stockiness stitch, but then we're gonna do some decreases here along the left side. So we're gonna work a little bit of shaping for that armhole. Row number 1, we're just gonna knit across. All right, row number 1 done on the right side. We're gonna turn our work and purl on the wrong side. So this is now row number 2 of shaping the armhole. All right, row number 2 done. Let's turn our work again. Next we have row number 3 on the right side, and now we're gonna be decreasing stitches. So first we just wanna knit until we have 4 stitches left. All right, now I only have 4 stitches left on my left needle, and now we're gonna work a decrease, just a knit 2 tog, so knit 2 together. So I'm gonna be knitting these 2 stitches as I would knit normally, but I go through both of these stitches and knit them 2 together to create a decrease like that. And we've decreased 1 stitch, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and knit these 2 last stitches. And that is it, you've done your first decrease. Next, we're gonna again turn the work, and for row 4, we're just gonna purl across, and then you're going to be repeating these 4 rows. So you're always gonna decrease on that 3rd row. So all in all, you will have worked that decrease 5 times altogether. So this is our shaping our armhole is gonna take place on a total of 20 rows. So you have first these 4 rows, and then you repeat them 4 more times. And then if you get confused, you can always check how many stitches you have. The pattern will say how many stitches you should end up with. All right, I have now completed the shaping for the armhole, and I actually went ahead and I put a little stitch marker in all of my decreases. So that way it's really easy to visually see how many decreases I've done and just keep track of things. So I can really recommend that. Just use these removable stitch markers that you can go ahead and open like this. And after you've done that, you're just going to complete that. And next we're going to shape the neckline. So for this neckline shaping, we're going to start to increase stitches here at the start of, or the beginning of, the right side rows always. And here I'm also going to work, or I'm also going to use these stitch markers just to keep track of things. So feel free to use that. All right, shaping the neckline. First, you're gonna work just 1 row on the right side of knit, and then on the wrong side row for row 2, just 1 side of purl. So now I'm gonna show you row number 3, where we're going to be increasing 1 stitch. So row number 3 starts with just knitting 2 stitches, knit 1 and knit 2. Then we're gonna make 1 left. This is abbreviated M1L, which essentially means we're gonna be making a left leading increase. And the way you do this is you're gonna locate the strand between your stitches. So if you pull a little, you'll see that there's this strand, like the top strand here, between your needle, between your stitches. And now when we're gonna make a left leading increase, we're gonna use the left tip of our left needle, or the tip of our left needle, and go through that strand from the front. So I wanna go here from the front and pick up that strand onto my left needle from the front. So like that. And then we're gonna treat this as a stitch. So I'm gonna be knitting this stitch now, but I'm gonna knit it from the back loop, because if I now just knit it here from the front, we have a big hole that we create. So I need to go in here through the back. So sometimes it helps tilting your work a little bit. So I insert my needle here at the back, like that. Then I wrap the yarn around, and then I take it through again. So it will look something like this. And then you can go ahead and remove it from your left needle, and that way you have increased 1 stitch. So that was make 1 left. Next, you're just gonna continue knitting all the way across, and now is a good chance also to put in that stitch marker into that increase. So it's gonna be easy for you to see how many stitches you've increased, because we're gonna be working quite a bit of increases here for our neckline. We're gonna knit across, so all our stitches, and we're gonna be doing this increase for X amount of times, always this increase row. And then you always have 3 rows in between. So you always have then row number 4, which is just a purl, and then you start the sequence again. So you have row number 1 and 2, and then on the third row, you will always do this increase. And then the rhythm will change a little bit. So then after you've completed that X amount of times, just check the pattern, the increases become a little bit more dense, so you'd work them on every other row. So just be mindful about that. I'm going to complete them and then you can visually see what I mean. But now you have all the techniques, so you're going to always increase using that make one left for this left front. All right, I have now completed the left front. So I have worked my neckline shaping, all of the increases. I put some stitch markers here in the beginning for section 1, where you work the increase on every 4th row, and then when you work on every 2nd row, I skip that because it's quite easy to see, or it was quite visible. And again, if you feel confused, you can always count how many stitches you have. So in the pattern, it will say how many stitches you should end up with. So that's a good guidance, a little checkpoint for you. Once we've done this, we are now going to just cut our yarn. And next we're gonna work the exact same thing for our right front. So everything but just mirrored. Next, let's work the right front. So for this one, we're going to be picking up stitches like we did for the left front, but we're going to start here at our right outer edge stitch marker and pick up stitches along all the way up until this stitch marker here that we placed at the cast on at the beginning. You want to again grab your needle and your yarn, and we can go ahead and remove this marker. Just make a note of where you're going to start. And I'm going to go in and again here, make sure that you go below kind of these little bumps that you have here from the increases to make sure that it's going to be very invisible and sort of seamless where we pick up our stitches. The pickup rhythm is again 1 stitch, so you pick up 1 stitch per 1 stitch. So basically in every stitch you're going to be picking up a stitch. All right, and here I come to my marker, gonna grab one more, pick up 1 more stitch here, and then I can go ahead and remove this marker. All right, that is it. So that's all the picked up stitches. When you've completed the setup row, you're gonna again start to shape the armhole. So you're gonna work 1 row of knit on the right side and 1 row of purl on the wrong side. And on the 3rd row, we're going to decrease. We're gonna this time decrease here at the right edge of the armhole by doing an SSK, also known as a slip slip knit. So I'm gonna show you how to do that. So for row 3, this is our decrease row. We're first gonna knit 2, and then you're gonna work an SSK, so a slip slip knit. So we're gonna slip 2 stitches without knitting them. So we're gonna slip and we're gonna do that knitwise. So as if you would knit this stitch, you would go here from the left of the loop, but we're not gonna knit it. So we're just gonna transfer it knitwise from the left to the right needle. And we do that with the second one as well. So from the left side, as if you would knit this stitch, but you're just gonna transfer it onto your right needle. So you've slipped, slipped, and now we're gonna knit these 2 together. So now we're gonna use our left needle, take it through both of these stitches. Then we're gonna wrap our yarn around our right needle, and then we're gonna take it through both of these stitches. And here you have created an SSK, a slip slip knit. So basically this is a left leaning decrease. And also again, you can put a little stitch marker into each of those decreases so you don't get confused or don't remember how many decreases you worked. You can always use these removable stitch markers. I've now completed my shoulder shaping, so you can see here the decreases. I didn't put stitch markers, but I have my first one and then 4 additional ones. And then I've now gone ahead and started to work on my neckline shaping. So I worked row 1 and 2, and now I am gonna work row 3, which is gonna be the row where we're gonna start to increase. And this time the increases are gonna be here at the left edge. So it's gonna correspond then with this left front with the V-neck. So we are essentially now creating that V-neck line. So first we're gonna knit now for row 3. We're gonna knit until we only have 2 stitches left. All right, now I only have 2 stitches left here on my left needle, and now we're gonna make one right, which is abbreviated M1R. So this is gonna be a right leaning increase. Again, like we did on the left front, we're gonna essentially be picking up this strand here between the stitches, between our needles. So if you kind of pull a little, you can see these two strands appearing here. And we want to now, this first strand, we're gonna pick it up with the left needle, but this time I'm gonna pick it up from the back. So for the make one left, we picked it up here from the front. For make one right, we're gonna pick it up from the back. So I bring my needle heel from the back and I pick up that strand of yarn, or those strands of yarns, like this. And then I go ahead and I can knit this, and this time I can just knit it from the front loop to create that twist, because now if I would knit it from the back loop like this, I kind of just show you, it's gonna be creating a hole, and we don't want that. We want that strand to twist. So I'm gonna insert my needle here from the front, grab yarn, take it through, and then I can remove it, and you can see that it creates this kind of twist here, so we don't get that hole. And then you go ahead and we just knit these two last stitches, and that is our first increase done. Now again, you can go ahead and put these removable stitch markers into your increases if you want, if that makes it just visually a little easier to see and keep track of, because we do have quite an amount of increases that we're going to be working. So you can do that, and then you first do the increases on every fourth row, and then it changes to every second row. So I'm going to be working my right front here, and then the next step after you've completed that is that we're going to be joining the right and the left front, and then we're going to work both, so the upper front essentially together for a few inches, or actually just 1 inch, I think, a few centimeters, and then we're going to be complete. Joining the left and right front. I have now worked the left front as well. So after you've completed that, we're going to be joining these two together. So after you've now worked this, we're not going to actually cut the yarn here, but actually leave it. And first what we want to do is we want to transfer all of these left front stitches on the same needle as our right front stitches. So I'm going to begin by transferring all of these stitches, right front stitches, onto my working needle. And if you had them on some scrap yarn, I'm just going to pick up all of these stitches here. Leave the yarn in there, and then I'm just going to pull it out, the yarn, after I've picked all of these up. All right, and then I can just go ahead and yank that out. All right, so now we have all of our stitches on the same circular needle here, and now we're just gonna basically knit across all of it and join them together. So when you did your right front, you're ended after a wrong side row, so then you're ready to start on the right side row, and we're just gonna knit first across all of our right front stitches. All right, I've knitted across my right front stitches, then I'm just gonna continue. So we'll connect the left front stitches and make sure that the first stitch that you knit, just pull on your working yarn a little extra to make sure that you don't have a gap here in between. When you've connected both your fronts, you're gonna be continuing knitting in stockinette stitch for approximately 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch. And you measure that here from the V point exactly. So there it should be approximately 1 inch, or the equivalent in centimeters, so 2.5 centimeters. So when you reach that, we are going to join everything and work the body. Next, we're gonna connect all of our stitches and start to work the lower body. So our first step is I'm gonna transfer these upper back stitches that I've had on hold here. I'm gonna transfer them onto this working needle. And I've actually gone ahead, I've already knitted all of my front stitches. So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna first knit these, then we're gonna cast on some new stitches here for the underarms, and then we're gonna knit across these, again cast on some new stitches here for the underarms, and then we're gonna place our beginning of our marker. But to be able to do that, I need to first transfer all of my stitches that I hadn't hold onto my working needle. Now this is very handy because I have this stitch wire, so I can just again pop that tube onto my knitting needle and transfer them. All right, so first you're gonna knit across all of those front stitches on the right side. And next your pattern is gonna say to cast on X amount of stitches using the backwards loop cast on method. So the way you do this is you grab your yarn, so the working yarn, and I'm just gonna grab it with my fingers, and then I'm gonna use my thumb to go up and over. So I place it up and over, kind of twist it like that. And then I can use my needle to go in through here and transfer that loop onto my working needle and tighten. So let's do that once more. Again, I grab it, I go with my thumb up and over and all the way around, bring my yarn to the front, and then I can use my needle, go in through here and take my thumb out and I tighten. And you're gonna do that for as many times as the pattern says in your chosen size. All right, and then easy peasy, you're just gonna connect your upper back stitches and we're just gonna knit. And you're gonna repeat the same thing for when you reach the other underarm. And here again, you always have this end here, so you might wanna tighten that a little bit. And after this, we're just gonna work the body. So now we don't need to knit back and forth or flat. We're just gonna knit until the body reaches a certain amount. I will show you in the next step once I've finished it. And then all that remains is to work the rib, and then the body is complete. You're going to continue to work the body just in stockinette stitch. There are no decreases, no shaping, so it's just smooth sailing. And then what you want to do, you want to have a measuring tape and you want to measure. So in the pattern, you'll find actually 2 measurements for the body length, and you want to be measuring here from the underarm and check that you get just a fit that works for you, so you know that you're going to work the body. And then we have the rib after that is going to be approximately 8 centimeters, so that's a little less than 3 inches or so. So I recommend to try this on while you're knitting it, and you can decide if you want to have it a little longer. I decided for this sample to go with a bit more cropped shape than my first one. And then you're just going to be switching to smaller size needles, and you can even do the last round of just knit in the smaller size needles. Sometimes I feel like that gets even better transition than into the rib. And then you're just gonna work in rib, knit 1, purl 1, nothing special there, and then bind off with the Italian bind off method. Of course, you're welcome to use whatever bind off method you prefer, but I'm gonna show how to work the Italian bind off method for the sleeve. So I'll put in a timestamp here. You can check also the chapter feature here in the description for this video to get that tutorial for how to work the Italian bind off method. Next, we are moving on to the sleeves. The sleeves are worked in the round, and we're going to be picking up stitches here from the entire armhole opening. And I'm actually going to show you, if you don't have a smaller, my camera. If you don't have a smaller circumference needle, so I'm actually working on my first sleeve here, and here I have, you can see it's much smaller, which is pretty handy. But if you don't have that, you can use the magic loop technique. So if you have the larger needle that you work maybe the body in, you can also use that for the sleeve, so you don't have to go out and buy a smaller one. We're gonna grab some new yarn, and then we're gonna pick up stitches here from exactly the middle of the underarm. So these are the stitches that we cast on for the body. So I'm just gonna insert my needle in here, leave a tail, and grab my yarn. And you'll find in the pattern, it says exactly how many stitches you need to pick up for your size, and also a suggested rhythm. So here from the underarm stitches, it's gonna be 1 stitch per stitch. So I need to pick up here first, because I need to pick up 6 stitches all in all. So I'm gonna pick up 3 stitches here. And then we're gonna start picking up stitches from the entire armhole opening. Now, what you can do is, because sometimes it's hard to get an even pickup rhythm, you can put some stitch markers, so you can divide basically the sleeves into sections, so then it's a little easier. So for example, if you need to pick up 80 stitches, you can divide this into 4 sections, and then you always have 20 stitches per section, which is just a little bit more manageable, I find. In the pattern, oh, my needle just escaped. In the pattern, you'll also see suggested a pickup rhythm. So my pickup rhythm that I suggest here is 2 stitches per 3 rows. Now, you might sometimes have to modify this a little bit. This will basically depend on your row gauge, so how many rows you needed to knit for 10 centimeters. So that's why it might vary a little. I know for me, 2 stitches per 3 rows works pretty well, but sometimes I might have to then skip like one stitch per 2 rows essentially. So what that means is that I'm gonna pick up now 2 stitches per each row here, and I want to make sure that I go in through the same sort of columnar line here to get a really neat pickup edge, and then I'm gonna skip one. So again, I pick up one from this row, one from the next row, and then I skip one. And again, it might be helpful here to have some stitch markers just to keep track and count how many stitches you have picked up. But this is the way you're gonna continue all the way around, and then we're gonna place a beginning of round marker here at the beginning. All right, I've now picked up stitches from the entire armhole opening. I did have to skip here quite a lot, so pick up almost 1 stitch per 2 stitches. And then I am going to place a beginning of round marker. That is quite important to do, just because this is then going to be really helpful when we start to decrease the stitches or the sleeves a little further along. And now, since I have this long cable, I'm just gonna pull it basically out like this. And here I'm gonna fix it a little, and I'm gonna, so magic loop basically means that you have these loops. So I'm gonna here from approximately half point, gonna bring out a loop here, like this. Then I have a loop on this hand here as well. I can adjust the stitches, and now I basically create these 2 loops here, which will allow me to knit with this longer needle without stretching out my stitches so much. So then I will just start knitting, and you're going to be knitting the stitches, the sleeves, in the round in stockinette stitch until they measure about 25 centimeters, so approximately 10 inches, and then we're going to be decreasing. But here, so I'm just going to be knitting my stitches now. So this is magic loop technique, if you've never encountered this before. So there's nothing really much to it other than you basically have these 2 loops, which then this way allows you to use a really long circumference needle for a smaller circumference. So this is very handy also if you're gonna knit like socks, sleeves, even hats or things that have just a smaller circumference. All right, now I'm approaching this loop place here. So then what I need to do, we need to again readjust. So I'm gonna pull my working needle out again, and the same time like pull the other side of the needle so I can work it. So I create this big loop here, and then I want to create a big loop here as well, like this. And what you do have to be mindful about here at the transition part, I suppose, make sure that you tighten that first stitch so that you don't get like a weird gap, or that it doesn't become looser at that point. The sleeves are shaped by working some decreases, so you want to be mindful that when you are knitting, keep track of how long your sleeve is. So you're going to continue just knitting in the round in stockinette stitch, but when your sleeve measures approximately 25 centimeters. So that's approximately here. So I worked mine a little further already. So 25 centimeters, so that's about 10 inches. Then you are going to work a first decrease round. And this decrease round is repeated 5 times altogether. And you always decrease 2 stitches per these decrease rounds. And they are worked approximately 2.5 centimeters, so 1 inch apart for 5 times altogether. And you do the first one when your sleeve measures 25 centimeters or 10 inches. So I've worked my sleeve a little bit further, but the decrease round is always the same. So I'm just going to show you the 2 decrease techniques, knit 2 together, and SSK that you're going to work for shaping your sleeve. All right, so let's work the sleeve decrease round. That is going to be repeated 5 times you see in the pattern. So first here I have my beginning round marker. I've worked that or slipped that. Then you're going to knit 3. Then you're going to do a knit 2 together, so a K2 tog, that's the abbreviation. And basically you're just going to knit 2 stitches as if you would knit 1, but you're going to knit actually 2. So I'm going to insert my needle into 2 stitches here, as I would do it normally, but I just knit 2 and I simply knit them together. So this way I have decreased 1 stitch. Then I'm going to continue, and the pattern is going to say knit to the last 5 stitches. So that means the last 5 stitches of the round. So before you get to your beginning of round marker. So let me just do that, and then I will show you the next decrease technique. All right, now I only have 5 stitches left before my beginning of round marker. So to the last 5 stitches of this round essentially. And now I want to do an SSK, and this is done by slipping 2, so slip, slip, knit. And we're gonna slip the first one as I would knit. So I go in from the left side of the stitch, but I just slip it from the left to the right needle. I do the same with the next stitch, so I can slip it, but I don't knit it. So I just basically transfer it from the left to the right needle. And then these 2 stitches, we want to knit them together, but this time we're gonna do it a little different. So I'm gonna insert my left needle into these 2 stitches, like that. And then I actually wrap my yarn around the right needle here, and then I bring it through, et voila. So now we've done an SSK, a slip, slip, knit, and this is actually a decrease that is going to lean to the left. So this is the decrease round that you will repeat. Otherwise, you're just gonna work stockinette stitch and until your sleeve measures approximately 40 centimeters. I have now worked my entire sleeve. So here when you've worked the length of the sleeve you want, essentially before the cuff, you're gonna do round of decrease. Just check the pattern, you just do a simple knit 2 tog, so knit 2 together, and then you're just gonna switch to or change to smaller needle size. I've used some double pointed needles, didn't have a pair, so I'm just using some random double pointed needles for my rib cuff. And next I'm gonna show you how to bind off the stitches with the Italian bind off method. So this is the same method that I've used here for the body hem, and this creates a really nice and almost like seamless. You can see here it goes from, so here is the right side of the work to the wrong side, a very, very elegant, really stretchy bind off method. And you're gonna use a tapestry needle for this. So once you're ready with the cuff, you just want to cut a thread or an end that is approximately 3 times the size or the length of the circumference of the whatever you want to bind off, essentially, like maybe 3.5, depending on a little bit. You don't want to run out of yarn. And then you're just gonna thread your yarn onto a blunt tapestry needle. Now the Italian bind-off method, also sometimes known as the tubular bind-off method, is essentially worked by, we're gonna be sewing basically all the stitches, and a little bit of an overview before we get into it. So there are many different ways of thinking about this. This is the logic that I'm going to share with you is one that I use to just remember the steps, because we're going to be repeating these steps all across these stitches. So then it's handy to have a bit of a rule to remember it by. And the way it works is I always think of this as either you will have a knit and a purl pair that starts with a knit stitch, or a purl and a knit pair. So I will always put that here on the screen. So there's always a knit and a purl pair, or a purl and a knit pair. just as a little overview. And you always go in through the stitches either purlwise, so when you go purlwise, you go in through a stitch from right to left. So this is purlwise, from right to left. So essentially as if you would work this stitch purlwise as a purl, or knitwise. So when you go in knitwise, you always go from the left to the right. So that's what that means. And first we have a bit of a preparation step. So the preparation step goes like this. You will have a knit stitch first on your needle. So this would be the first stitch of the next round that I will be working. And we will go in through this purlwise. So I will bring my needle and all the yarn through. And here the key is to not tighten too much. So obviously you don't want to have a gap, but do not tighten too much because then it won't be a very stretchy kind of edge. Okay, so we've gone through that purlwise. Then I'm gonna go and bring my tapestry needle from the back. So I take my yarn and my tapestry needle here from the back, and I'm gonna bring it through these first 2 stitches. Not through the actual stitch, but between the stitches. So I go in here between the stitches. So let me show you, between these 2 stitches. So I don't go in the actual loop, I just go between these 2 stitches. And so from the back, and then I pull, so I bring the yarn front again. All right, that is our preparation step done. All right, so next we have now gonna go through the sequence for the Italian bind-off method. So we have a knit stitch, and then we have a purl stitch. So we're going to go in through both of these 2 stitches now knitwise. So knitwise was when you went from left to the right. So left to the right, and you always go in first through the second stitch of the pair. So now we have a knit stitch here. We need to go in through both of these stitches knitwise, and we always need to start with the second stitch. Those are the things that we need to remember. And don't worry if it feels overwhelming at this point, no worries. Just go with me here a couple of times and then you're going to get the hang of it. All right, so we've gone through knitwise through that second stitch. So now we have the yarn here in the back. I'm gonna simply bring it here to the front, and then we're gonna go knitwise through this first stitch as well. So I bring my tapestry needle from the left to the right through this first knit stitch here on our needle. And now we can go ahead and bind off this first stitch. So let's go ahead and just transfer that from the needle and then give it a slight little tug. Not too much, but a little bit of a tug. All right, that was the knit pair sequence. Now we have a purl stitch. So we have a purl and a knit stitch next. The sequence here is gonna be, we go in both of these stitches purlwise, that means from right to the left, and we start again with the second stitch. So we go in from the second stitch, take it all the way through first, purlwise, and then we're gonna do the same with, then we're gonna do the same with the first stitch. So again, purlwise, so from right to left, and bring it all the way through. Again, tighten it a little bit, and then we can go ahead and bind off this stitch, and then I will tighten it a little bit. All right, now we have a knit and a purl again. So the only thing now when we have a knit and a purl stitch, we need to do that little prep thing where we bring our yarn, so we bring our needle between the first stitches or between these stitches, or this is always done when you have a knit and a purl stitch. Then you always first take your needle from the back between these 2 stitches. So you don't go in the stitches, you just take it between these stitches here. So we go in through the back so that we can essentially go in through again now the second stitch knitwise and the first stitch knitwise. And then we can go ahead and bind off that stitch. Next we have a purl sequence, and it's very easy when you have a purl sequence, you know you need to go in purlwise, and you always go in first through the second stitch. So purlwise through the second stitch, purlwise through the first stitch, and we can bind off. Next we have a knit and a purl sequence. Always when there's a knit, we first need to go here between the first 2 stitches, so we can get our working yarn here between these stitches so that we can go in knitwise. So because we have a knit stitch, we go in knitwise, so that's a good way to remember that. We go in knitwise through the second stitch and knitwise through the first stitch. Voila, and you can go ahead and bind off that, and again give a little tug. So this is all it is. So I hope this logic makes sense to you. You can rewatch this video, you can play it back, you can make your own little rules for how to remember this. This is just my way of remembering it, because otherwise I would have to, just check all the time that I'm doing correct. So these little steps help me. All right, now I only have one stitch left. I need to go through that purlwise once more. Then I can remove that needle. And now you can see that there's a little bit of a gap that is here from the beginning and the end. So what I like to do is, now I still have my tapestry needle, I'm gonna go through here. So this right leg of the first stitch here, the first stitch column, I'm gonna take my needle through there and tighten it. And that already looks much better. Then I'm gonna go here onto the wrong side, make sure I keep that tight. And then usually what I do is, so now I locate, here, the knit column. So I'm gonna go in here, one stitch below, go in there, and again, just wrap it. And let's see, that looks pretty good. And then I can just go ahead and basically weave in my end here. I usually like to go a few stitches up here, weave in my end, and then in a couple of different directions. So I'll go here now horizontally, of course making sure that you won't see it so much, and then take it here through. And the best thing is, of course, if you can split the yarn a little bit, that will just create a really, really good solid way for the yarn to not come unraveling or undone. All right, once I've done that a few times, I can go ahead and cut this yarn. Perfect. So there you have it. The cuff is done. The Italian bind-off method is done. Next, I'm gonna show you how to knit the collar and the few special techniques used in it. The collar is worked by, we're gonna pick up stitches from all the way the neckline, this neckline opening, and then it's worked in a rib to a double length, and then we're gonna fold it in half and attach on the inside. And I usually do this by hand sewing. You can also knit it together with a pickup edge, but I'm not gonna show you that technique in this tutorial, but I'm gonna show you, the special techniques for this. So we're gonna start picking up stitches, and you're gonna start here at the right shoulder seam when you have the work in front of you with the right side facing and the back piece facing you. So then that would be this point here, the right side. We need to have some new yarn, and I'm gonna be picking up with a 3mm needle. So the same needle I used for my cuff ribs and the body hem. I'm gonna start by inserting my needle in here, and then I'll grab some new yarn. And so this is, now we're gonna pick up and knit essentially stitches here. So first from the back, and here at the back, let me bring you a little closer. Here at the back, you'll see how many stitches you need to pick up, but the pickup rhythm is essentially one stitch per stitch. So that means that we're gonna go in through each of these knit columns, and I'm gonna pick up one from each. And just be mindful that you don't go too close to the edge here, but you go in a little bit below, just so we get a really seamless edge here and you don't get like a little bump here sticking out. All right, I picked up all my stitches from the back. Next, we're gonna start picking up stitches here from this slanted edge, and here the pickup rhythm changes a little bit. So this is the way I need to pick up my stitches, and the pickup rhythm will probably not be one stitch per one stitch here. It might differ a little for you. I think I'm gonna go for approximately 2 stitches per 3 rows, but again, this might depend a little bit on your row gauge, so just be mindful and keep counting. You can even put here a stitch marker, so it's easier to know where you started from. So I'm gonna pick up 2 stitches from each row, and then I'm gonna skip one. I'm gonna try if that rhythm would work well. Now I am approaching the V point. I need to pick up one more stitch. I'm gonna do that from this stitch. And now you want to place a stitch marker. I have this cute little stitch marker here, so I'm gonna place that before the V point. Then we're gonna pick up one stitch from exactly here, the V point. So I'm gonna do that in here. So I don't go in here exactly where I have just one strand, but I go in below one like that. And then I'm going to be placing another stitch marker. All right, I'm going to place another stitch marker. Didn't have a matching one, unfortunately. And then I'm going to pick up the same amount I picked up here from this edge all the way until I get here to the end. All right, now I picked up stitches from the entire neckline opening. So I picked up here along the other edge as well. One more stitch then for this edge. And then we're just gonna start knitting in the round. So I'm gonna be placing a beginning of our marker here. And, wait, something happened. And the first round is gonna be a purl round. So this is a little detail that is gonna correspond to the little purl edge here on the back. So we're gonna work one round of purl, and then we're gonna start working in rib. And then to create this V neck, we're gonna do a little special technique here between these two stitches. I'm gonna show you that after I've worked these first initial rounds. All right, I have now worked the preparation round, where it was just a round of purl. Then I've worked rounds 1 and 2, which is just knit 1, purl 1. And you want to make sure when you start making the knit 1, purl 1, that the stitch between those markers at the V point is a knit stitch. And if you picked up the right amount of stitches, this should all work out, but just be mindful about that. So now we're at the first decrease round. This is round number 3 in the pattern. So I worked knit 1, purl 1 up until 2 stitches before the first marker here at my V point. So I'm gonna knit 1 more stitch. And then what we're gonna do, so we're gonna work a CDD, a central double decrease. And we're gonna work that over the 3 next stitches. So I essentially, or we, need to remove these markers while we do this. Now, I realize it would have been better to use a removable stitch marker. So if you have those, I'm probably gonna change this out to a removable stitch marker instead. So I can just go ahead now and remove these just for a bit. This one I need to slip these stitches, remove this marker for a bit, and then I'm gonna slip them back. All right, so now this is the V point knit stitch. So let's do the central double decrease. We're gonna first slip the first 2 stitches together knitwise. So we don't do them separately, but together. So I go in through here, these 2 stitches from the left to the right, so knitwise, and I slip them to my right needle. Then the next stitch I'm gonna knit, and then I'm going to pull those 2 stitches that we just slipped over that knitted stitch. Like that. And this is what you get. So you have a central double decrease. So essentially it's centered. So we decreased 2 stitches here now, and it looks really nice and neat. Now we need to put back those stitch markers. So I'm gonna place this one back. So here I have my little cherry marker. I'm gonna put that back in place like that. And then I'm gonna place this one back. So you always have these 2 stitch markers around that knit stitch. And then we're gonna continue, and we're gonna work this central double decrease for a few more rounds here on every second round. So you're welcome to do that. I've now worked my collar a little bit further, so you can kind of see the overall construction here. So we did that first central double decrease over here, and then you're gonna repeat that central double decrease round 4 times all in all together. And you'll see in the pattern, so then you will have, after the first central double decrease, you will then essentially have 3 knit stitches, but just follow the pattern. That will say exactly what you need to do. But we're gonna decrease 4 times all together. Then you do a few rounds of just knit 1, purl 1. You always have those stitch markers on either side of this knit column here. And then what we have to do is we're gonna start to increase again in that same V point knit stitch. So you can see I have done that now. And this is done because when we're gonna fold this in half, double on the inside, we need that fabric so we can attach it and the color will lay nice and flat. So for this, I'm gonna show you a technique called knit 1, yarn over knit 1. It's abbreviated knit 1, yo knit 1. And I wanted to show you. So I've actually worked that already 3 times. So you can see here this little hole. So it creates a little bit of a hole because you do a yarn over, But since this is on the wrong side, you're not going to be able to see it anyways. So that's why I've chosen this increase. And you're gonna, again, just follow the pattern, but I wanted to show you just this technique if you've not done this before. So here, as I said, this is now gonna be my last increase round in the pattern. So I'm now working round 19. So I worked up until my stitch marker, then I've slipped that, then I knit one, purl one, knit one. And then here I come now into this knit stitch, and now I'm gonna do knit one, yarn over, and knit one into the same stitch. So in this stitch, I'm first gonna knit just regularly, then I'm gonna do a yarn over. So essentially what I just do is I take my working yarn and I just take it from the front. So I wrap it around my working needle, the right hand needle, just wrap it around from the front to back, yarn over. So essentially just create a loop, and then I'm gonna knit again into the same stitch. So I did the yarn over, and then I'm gonna knit once more into the same stitch. So essentially I've increased 2 stitches by knitting into the same stitch, knit one, yarn over, knit one. And then I can go ahead and let that go. And then I'm gonna just continue in the established pattern. So knit one, purl one, and knit one, and then slip. And then I will show you on the next round, just you're essentially gonna work these stitches just as regular stitches, but I'll show you how to do that. I'm now working on round 20, so the next round after I did that increase, and now I worked up until the point where we did the knit one, yarn over, knit one. So what I'm going to do is essentially just treat these as regular stitches. So I have now knit one, purl one, knit one, so I need to do a purl one. And then this is now the yarn over that we did, and I'm just going to knit that one. So basically we just treat these as regular stitches, and you can see there is a little bit of a hole there when you do this increase method. But again, since this is going to be on the wrong side on the inside, you're not going to see this. So this is more for functionality than aesthetics, I would say, and that's why I've chosen this increase method. You could of course also, if you would want a neater increase, you could do a make one left or make one right on either side of the knit column, but sometimes I feel that kind of pulls a little bit on that column. So, and you can also, now we don't need these stitch markers. This doesn't say in the pattern, but you can go ahead and remove these stitch markers now, because after round 20 we're not going to do any increases or decreases anymore. We're just gonna do a few more rounds of just ribbing, and then bind off all the stitches loosely so that we can then go ahead and attach them on the inside. All right, I have now blocked my comfort zone sweaters. You can see that the stitches have really smoothed out and relaxed. So I just soaked it in some cold or lukewarm water for approximately 10 minutes. And then I just squeezed out all the water from it, and then I left it to dry overnight. And you can also really see, so some of the test knitters had some feedback that they felt that their color was like puckering the fabric around here, but I do really feel that the blocking helps a lot. So you can see that my collar is really laying nice and flat. And here you can also see the final, let me take you closer, the final construction here. And now the finishing step is we need to attach this collar on the inside. So you're gonna fold it double, and we're gonna attach it on the inside. And I left a generous tail here when I was binding off, so I bound off quite loosely here so that I can use this end basically when I'm gonna attach it now by hand sewing. So I'm just gonna use a tapestry needle for this. Something you can do is you can turn the whole work with the wrong side facing outwards. So I'm actually gonna do that. Sometimes I feel like it's just a little bit easier that way. All right, so now I have the wrong side facing me. And you could, of course, use some needles here or some pins to help you. So you want to be really mindful about aligning the collar properly so it doesn't start to ring or look crooked. And especially here at the V point, of course, you want to make sure that that will align. But I'm just gonna freehand it and just make sure as I go along that it aligns. So I'm gonna just attach it here double, and then I'm gonna attach it here to basically the pickup edge or this neckline opening that we had. And then I'm gonna go through here, the bind off edge, and attach it here. And I don't want to make this too tight because again, I don't want the neckline to be too tight. Of course, this depends a little bit on your gauge, how loose or how tight you knit, also a little bit on your yarn. And again, make sure, so you can check here when you have this knit column. So this knit column, I know that it needs to align there in order for it to align properly, so it doesn't become skewed or anything like that. So it can be handy to just hold your hand, go bit by bit, and attach it all the way through. All right, that is it. So after you've finished attaching your collar, your sweater is done. What I did do as a final step was I steam blocked the collar just because I wanted to really kind of lay nice and flat. So, and of course you can also attach the collar before blocking it. That's kind of, I've done it both ways. I don't think it makes like a huge difference if I'm honest, but yeah, you can choose to steam block it. So then you would just damp or soak a kitchen towel, bring out the water so it's like really damp but not soaking. And you would place that on the garment and then you use an iron and kind of steam it. So steam blocking, that's called. But I also, yeah, generally recommend to wet block your knitted garments. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and the little styling bits there in the beginning fun and inspiring. You can find the pattern to the Comfort Zone sweater both at my own website at kutuvakika.com and in my Ravelry store. And I would be so excited to see your project if you decide to make your own Comfort Zone sweater. So you can use the hashtag Comfort Zone sweater on Instagram. I go and check out all the hashtags regularly. So it's just very, very fun and builds that community vibe. And of course on Ravelry, it's really fun. There are all these projects that you can go through and see and get some inspiration for different colors, what people have chosen. So that's always really fun, I think, as well. And as always, you can find me at Kutuvakika on Instagram, where I share more of the things that I'm working on. And yeah, can't wait to see you in the next one. Happy knitting, bye!